Hi, good day everyone, and welcome to Virtual Thursday, April 2nd, 2019. This is our fourth presentation for the year, and we're going to go ahead and just jump right into this. Appreciate for everybody's attendance. And today we're going to go over the Occupancy Module Settings. And good day again, my name is Mark Wolf. I'm Lead International Trainer for Emergency Reporting, and today with me is flying as my wingman is Greg Simmons, Regional Trainer, and James Angerett, Regional Trainer. During today's presentation, we will be covering the occupancy module settings, specifically in this, and we'll show you that in a little bit with our screenshot, the occupancy section and the inspection section. We have those broke up now since the redesign of the occupancy module. Permits, specifically, we're going to cover permits with the setup in the settings and how to generate the permits and so forth on June 4th, 2020, here in a couple months. We're breaking this up to a schedule that we have. So here next month, we're going to do on May 7th, the occupancy tab by tab, including how to generate your inspection schedules and recording an inspection. June 4th, again, we'll be reviewing the permits. And on July 2nd, we will be covering our Vision program, which is our OVAP scoring system. I want to remind everybody that we have training opportunities out there for you. Virtual Thursdays, they're free. As most fire chiefs will say, hey, if it's free, it's for me. They're typically held on the first Thursday of every month at 1100 hours Pacific time. We do have online sessions that are available in 3-hour blocks. They can be customized to meet your needs. We do perform quite a bit of on-site training, whether you have a brand new account or you need some refresher training within your department on all the functionality of emergency reporting. We can come into your department and do that customized to what you need. We also present regional training academies. Now, as we are ongoing through the COVID-19 crisis here, we have had to delay the presentation to our regional training academies, and we actually canceled a few, but we still have some on the books, dependent upon how the COVID-19 flies. But we have Austin, Texas on July 7th through 9, and you have to excuse me for just a moment. I am looking to see it. I think we have somebody that is not muted out there, and I need to attend to that. And I'll be with you just a moment. Okay, so Austin, Texas, July 7th through 9th. Charlotte, North Carolina in August, the 4th through the 6th. Colorado Springs, Colorado, September 8th through the 10th. Las Vegas, Nevada, October 6th through the 8th. And following up with the end, one we're going to do is Chattanooga, Tennessee, November 3rd through the 5th. And again, those are dependent on how the COVID-19 plays out over the next few months. We'll keep you up to date with that. Now, to log in, to sign up for those and take a look at all of those, you can go to this website, emergencyreporting.eventbrite.com. And also within our system, go to emergencyreporting.com, what we refer to as our marketing site. Go to customer success, the training and learning center, and you can see on the left side of the screen there, we have links available for you to select for the regional training academies, on-site training and so forth. And you can even email us if you need to at training@emergencyreporting.com. So we're going to go ahead and jump into it then. Checking my notes and reminding everybody that we do have the ability for you folks to put in questions if you'd like to respond, for us to respond back to you about the topic for today. Please limit your questions into the settings sections of the Occupancy module so we can hopefully get all your questions answered today. We did put in a couple handouts. If you want to look in your control panel under the handouts, there's two in there. One of them is a Excel spreadsheet that I'll talk about in a little bit that covers some suggestions for categories and subcategories in your occupancy settings. And also we put a copy of the ISO needed fire flow booklet in there. There's some great information in there that we're going to talk about and a little bit. So here we are within the we're going to be in the occupancy module. We're going to go ahead and navigate there, and then we're going to jump right into it at the top of the page and hit the settings button at the top of the page. So I'm going to ask Greg or James if you can switch over to the attendees thing. I'm getting some feedback or an echo from somebody. It may be coming from Greg, actually. There you go. Hear a little bit of echo there. Anyways, so here's where we're going to start out in the settings. And we're going to pretty much talk about all these one at a time here. First place we're going to go is the starting point, typically is the occupancy categories. Every occupancy record is required to have a category and a subcategory. So we can go ahead and build these. You can build these customized to what you need. Now, typically, what we'll do when these get set up for your account, they'll be set up, and I'm talking about a brand new account, according to the code base that you use. And where I work or worked here in Ohio, we use the International Fire and Building Codes. So in that regard, or for our example of a category would be assembly, we use text straight out of the code book. And that gets broke down into different subcategories that we have in here. As you can see, A1 theaters, A2 restaurant and nightclubs, A3 the worship, recreation, amusement, and so forth down the line here. So this can be built up any way you need, and that's one of the handouts that I put in there is a file that's got some guidance on this, whether you're International Fire Code or the NFPA code based. It will describe to you how to set these up as we recommend, although you can do it to whatever you need in your jurisdiction here. And I'm going to take a short pause here. I have to go find, we got the boss out here and he wants to get over to where we are at. Just a moment, Mac, I'm promoting you right now. There we go. So I hope, Mac, if you got in, I've got a couple people that put out there that they're not hearing any sound. Were you able to hear us okay, Mac? And it looks like we are definitely hearing, having some audio problems. My system says that I am broadcasting and speaking right now. Greg, we were hearing you before. You hearing us okay?
Yes, I am hearing you fine.
Okay.
I did notice that there's a couple people now. There's one person that, yeah, a couple more people saying hearing you fine.
Hi, Jay Gunsolves is out there. Hi, Jay. How you doing today? And he's hearing us fine too. So we'll go ahead and continue then. Appreciate that, Greg and Jay. So anyway, one of the questions we often get, and I want to talk about a little bit in here, is how do we to manage these? Let's say I want to have one of these that I don't want to use anymore. So basically, when we jump into here for each category, like institutional, and you can see I have 4 subcategories here. When I mouse over one of those, if I right click, you'll get a couple options. And the first option I have in this case is I can edit the subcategory. So I need to change my text on that. I can do so just by selecting that, and you'll see that we can go in and change this text and then save it. Now my other option would be to right click, delete the subcategory. Now this is where it comes a little bit tricky. If you need to delete a subcategory and it doesn't give you that option there, what we want to do is remind you that is if you attach this category and or a specific subcategory to an occupancy, it will take away the ability to delete that. You'll see that in other parts of the occupancy module is some of your settings. You can't delete them. You may be able to edit them, but not delete them because they're attached to an occupancy. And this does include archived occupancies. So what you might have to do is, if you need to remove one, delete it, is to go in and do a search in your archived occupancies in specifics to look to see if you have that subcategory or that category, if that's the case, and remove it from that occupancy, and then go ahead and then you'll get this option to delete it when you unattach it from all of them. Now, what some folks will do is, I think I have in here, as you can see up the top of the page here, I have a category that we're calling archived and also a subcategory called archived. And one thing that we would do is make a practice if it was a building that I wanted to archive, but it doesn't exist anymore whatsoever. I'm going to archive the whole occupancy record. Is I will change the category subcategory to archived, which will disassociate it from my other ones that I use daily to keep that from happening down the road. That's just one of the little tricks of the trade that we have and that we've used and that we teach when we're doing this a little bit. So again, you can build this list exactly how you need. Now, if you do have a, let's say in this institutional category, we need to add an additional subcategory. It's simple as mouse overing that, and then we can go ahead and add the subcategory, and we're just going to call this Virtual Thursday 2020-4 and add it, and you'll see that it will now be on that list. There again, because I don't have any occupancies attached to that, I can go in and delete that and remove it. So that's how we can keep this all cleaned up. And you may see some things in here that you wouldn't normally see in your account, because this account is used for a lot of training and testing purposes, and we throw things in and out of here on a pretty continual basis. So that's basically how we would treat our categories and subcategories. And I'm not seeing any questions coming in yet, Greg, so I think we're doing good here. So what we're going to do is go back out to the settings main page, and we're going to jump on down next to field settings. In field settings, you've got a few options for the setup of your account to do a few items here. We'll talk about all these in turn as we go down the row here. On the top of the list is an enable agency permit ID. To be specific, we'll talk about this in a few months, but the permit ID number, every permit has a system generated permit ID number. What this field setting does is turns on a field where you can manually enter your own agency permit ID in that permit. If you use it, all you have to do is check the box and it enables that field. We have 4 fields in here. Actually, there's 5 of them. There's 4 in this row, and these got jumbled up a little bit from what they used to be. So enable dispatch ID field, enable IB code field, enable ISO ID field, and we're going to jump down a couple to enable NFPA code field, and then enter UB code field. Those are additional fields that you can turn on or off, and all of these are on the info tab, and just simply check marking them like this will turn them on, and we'll give you extra fields to put data into if you need them. They're extremely optional depending on what your needs are. The next setting that we're going to talk about down here is a master tenant. So with the master tenant, we can turn that on, and that allows us to set up a master occupancy then, and then we can assign tenants to it. In my example I'll give you is a strip shopping center. We can set up the master record would be for like the property owner, the management firm, for example, for that. And we would set up each store facility into the tenants and that. And we'll go over that in specifics next month when we go tab by tab event. This is how we just turn that on. Yes, sir.
We do have a question out there. What is the intended purpose of the code fields?
So I'm going to assume, I'm going to make an assumption here. I know what this one's for, enable ISO ID field. If you have a building in your jurisdiction that when the ISO comes out and does a grading on it, they do that building individually that occupancy, what we would call it individually, it gets an ID number assigned to it. And that's what that's for. The IB code field is like the International Building Code. Jumping down to the NFPA or the UB code fields are just fields that will specifically be for the code. If you use the IBC, or down here if you use NFPA codes, Unified Building Code field, if I jump all the way back up here, is in some cases a property may have a specific dispatch ID assigned to it, and it gives you that ability to put that data in those fields. And quite frankly, I know we have them, but in my experience of doing training for ER and traveling far and wide, I really haven't seen too many people use them, but they are there and you can use them if you need to use extra documentation. Okay, hopefully that answers your question, Riley. If not, just post another question and we'll take a look at it. We're going to go down here a little bit and we're going to talk about requiring an inspection result. Now in the inspection form, there's 4 pages. On the 3rd page is where we would select an inspection result for that particular inspection. Turning this on by check marking that box requires data into that field. So your inspectors would have to make a selection there. I think that's a good practice to enable that. And an example and further, the inspector can note that the inspection was passed, it failed the inspection or whatever, may be those selections. And that's a field that you can custom build, pardon me, to those particular results that you might need, depending on your terminology you use. The inspection times, requiring them, if you enable that, on page 1, there's the start time, which is always required, start date and time. And on page 3 is the ending date and time. Turning that on again will require data in those fields on page 3. And that's really helpful to track time, especially if you are throwing entries to your daily log, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Here by inspection type, we can do that. It'll put a log entry with those starting and ending times to your daily log. Then you can track how much time your inspectors are out basically doing their inspections. The next item down here is our requiring an occupancy type. So just enabling that by putting a check mark into it, that turns on that field, which you always have on the info tab. It turns it on to make it a required field. And what that's very, very helpful for is, especially if you use NFPA-based code enforcement, contrary to what the International Fire Code and Building Codes, how they split them up with an assembly, for example, into A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, NFPA really doesn't do that. You can use this particular field and build an occupancy type list for all the different types of occupancies that you have. Basically, to further define it is what I would basically describe that being. So what we're going to do here, let me show you what that works. I do want to cover that now. We're going to go into an occupancy, and we'll just pick this one. And if I scroll down the page and we get to this field here, this is the field we're talking about, occupancy type. Got a red asterisk with it now because I turned that on as being required. Now I can go into a list of occupancy types, and you can define this however you need to. This is a customizable field. Pardon me. And then mark it as paid. I just selected storage here. So basically you can further define that with that particular field. There's occupancy type. That's what that particular field does. In this particular account, I don't want that turned on, so we'll turn it back off. Down here, the next one down has to do with permits. We'll just talk about it briefly. As if you do billing, especially with permits, that you may want to turn that on, and it requires a billing address to be put into your permit. And then the last one down is if you need to require expiration dates and times for your permit. So you have permits that last for 30 days or maybe 6 months, or whatever the case may be. When you check that box, you enable that field to be required. So you have to put a date and time in that permit expiration. We're going to turn that off right now. So that is basically the field settings, one of the basic setup functions within the system. So let's go back to settings. And we're going to come down here next to fire protection system. This one gives us a little bit of problems. I'm going to basically show you what the problem is basically on this page. This is a layered setting. We give you on this particular page are categories of fire protection systems. As you can see, I'm moused over for my automatic sprinkler systems. And if I select to edit this, you'll see that I can edit my text. But if I double click it, you'll see underneath the fire protection systems for automatic sprinkler systems, I have to build my types of systems that we have in here. So in this particular case, we have dilute systems and we have wet pipe systems. I will note to you right now while we're looking at this, when I go over all the way over here to the right in that particular row, you can see that trash can is grayed out and I cannot select it. And that is because that type of system is attached to an occupancy out there. That's one of the ways that we have to maintain that. If that was bold and blue, then you could delete it. So we're going to go ahead and add a system, and we'll just go ahead and type it in, as many of you might have in your communities. You may have a dry pipe system, and I don't know that there's any restrictions on the number of systems that you can put in here. But we'll go ahead and save that, and you'll see we do have now a dry pipe system, and I can build that out to whatever I see in my particular jurisdiction. Since I don't have that dry pipe system attached to any records, I can delete it. Now, if you're trying to delete one of those again, and it doesn't bold for you like that to delete it, that means it's attached somewhere, and that includes archived occupancies. So we've got a question. Hi, Brian. My buddy Brian from up in the North Dakota there. So when he's asking, I'll go ahead and jump in this, Greg. When you turn on a field setting and you make an entry on an occupancy and you later turn that off as to not making it required or hiding those fields, there is no change within that occupancy. Now, the one that you do get a little bit of question on sometimes is if you don't have the require occupancy type enabled and you enable it, if you go into that occupancy record, then you'll have to make a selection before you can save that page. It just turns it on as a required field. These are global settings that are applied to every occupancy, and you'll have to turn that on. Now, if you do put data in, such as the NFPA code field, if we turn that on and put data into it, and then we come back in later and turn it off, there's no effect to it. You don't even lose that data. It's still out there. It just doesn't display that field in the info tab anymore. So hopefully that answers your question, Brian. It's good. That's a good one. So we get questions quite a bit about the fire protection systems. How come I cannot add them? And the answer is you need to go into your account and build what you see in your community. And by the way, you can add different categories here too. So if some of these are replicated in this particular account, but up here in the upper right is that corner button to add the category. Select that, type it in, and save it. And it'll be a category that you can go ahead and add systems to. Okay, so let's go jump on right down below that, occupancy contact types. There is a list in here, and I'm going to show you this. We have what we call a pre-filled default codes. This is one of them that you'll have in your account. Now you can add additional contact types to whatever you need. Again, it's a free form, whatever you might need. As you can see, we've got a lot in here. Shift supervisor, different types of engineers and so forth. Whatever you need as a contact type, build it. Just simply add contact type, put your text in, and then select save, and you're off and running with that. And I am going to, after we get done with this section, I'm going to go into the admin module and show everybody how you can reset your system with the pre-filled default codes if you want to do that. Occupancy zones. There's 3 areas in the system where you can set up zones. Incidents, occupancies, and hydrants. I recommend, unless you need to do it differently, that you may want to set them up and mirror them basically. In this particular case, we have a code and a zone title in here. And again, you can add these however you need to within your jurisdiction, however you have it set up geographically. Select add zone. Put a code in and a title. And go ahead and save it. And then we've got it in here. We have 3 lists that have to do with roof materials, constructions, and types. Basically, these are built with our predefined codes. You can add to these if you see something in your jurisdiction that is not on the list. It's fairly simple to do, is to select add construction. And save it. And we've got that in here. Now we can make that selection out here. So again, there's 3 lists with that: roofing materials, roof construction, and roof types that are predefined, and you can add items to that if you need to, if you see a different type within your jurisdiction. We're going to skip over the migrate occupancies right now. We're going to come back to that. Construction types. So we have a pre-built construction type list. This is one of our pre-filled default codes that is based off of the ISO definition, because we use the ISO needed fire flow formula. There are some added to here, as you can see. We've got like down here towards the bottom on this list, type 2B. Here where I am in Ohio, we use the International Building and Fire Codes, and we don't talk about construction as ISO terminology does. So we added type 2B. That's a form that is construction that's pretty popular around this area. One of the things I want to just point out to you is that with the ISO definition, you need to map that. If you add these, you can add these or edit them to your construction types that you may use. But what we want you to make sure that you do is map it to the correct ISO construction type that we have here. Now, what we do have in that needed fire flow booklet that's in the handouts and in our knowledge base article we have referring to the calculating the OVAP score. So if you just type in as a search OVAP and scroll down this page a little bit, you'll see this chart in here. So here's ISO terminology that we have in the account, and if you use perhaps the international based codes, then you can come down here and with a modified fire resistive is 2A, fire resistive is 1A, heavy timber is type 4 specifically. So we do have that cross-reference chart here, and you can see that we have multiple code-based numbers and settings in here that you can refer to, and that is in that booklet that I have in the handouts as well. It's very important to get that correct.
Mark.
So your fire flow gets generated correctly. Yes, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, we got a question out there from Rob Miner about can you have multiple roof constructions and types?
Unfortunately, Rob, the answer is no. Let's go back into the occupancy we looked at before, and we're going to go to the pre-fire plans page. And when we scroll down here a little bit, you can see we can only make one selection for each one of those. So the answer is no, unfortunately. I know that comes up once in a while, but that's basically how the system is designed and built. And I know, especially with an older building, we've got some here in my community that may, we've even got a few that have bowstring trusses with some shed roof type construction that have been built onto that particular building over the years. So what we kind of thought here is that the one that's the most dangerous to us is the one that we're going to put in here. Obviously, our trusses are more important to note rather than the beams and so forth. Hopefully that answers your question there, Rob. Okay, that's the construction types. Occupancy action code. This is my favorite one. In the, we'll jump into an occupancy record to give you a quick little demo of this here for today. Is we can set up action codes, and this is part of the default codes as well. So we have a code to CO, certificate of occupancy, and you can build this list as you need. It is fairly simple to do. So if you need to add a new code, one that we had in our system where I worked was basically the code was TC, and it was like telephone consultation. How many times you get, called on the telephone and they would ask you different questions, and we would give them answers to it, and we would go ahead in the actions tab in that case and set that up. Since we have it set up now, telephone consultation, we're going to jump back into my occupancy. That's this actions tab all over here at the end. So if I've got documents that I need to enter into a record, like a tier 2 report, sprinkler, contractor test reports, and so forth, I will put them in here. This is the appropriate place to put items like that. And for our case here, when we got that phone call, we would come in to add a new action, would select our action code. We'll scroll down here and grab that telephone consultation and type in a few notes. And then, we can add a file to it if we need to also, if you've got a document that you want to load up into here. We'll save that and we'll record it on this page. So if we need to next year, when we go inspect the building and Bob has done something we told him not to do, or contrary to any kind of action like that, I've got a record of it right here. It's really quick and painless. I'm not writing notes down on a piece of paper that get lost in the shuffle. We put it all in here. Some of our buildings here had quite a lengthy list of those types of actions, especially our buildings that we got tier 2 reports from and fire protection system reports from and so forth. Again, customizable for you. Make this as big or as little as you need. Okay, so
Mark?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, got another question to revisit that roof types. Greg Lopez would like to know, could you have multiple roof types if you split the occupancies by using master tenant?
Oh, you absolutely could, because the master would be one occupancy and each tenant could be a portion of that building, whether it's the same occupant or different occupancies within it, like in a strip center. But certainly you could do that, Greg. Good question. Absolutely you can, Greg. Master tenant, because each record you have the different pre-fire plan tab for the master and then for each tenant underneath it. Perfect, great question. So that is basically that information. I'm checking my notes to make sure that I am good with that. Okay, so we're going to go back up and talk about migrate occupancies. This is a good feature to use, especially if in a brand new account where, let's say, we imported occupancy data, but we didn't have data into the category and subcategory field. What happens is, in that particular case, is that they may come in, this is pretty typical, is they'll come in for a category and subcategory, it will be imported. There's 3 different functions that we can do in here. So I just selected, let's go back down here. We're going to look at imported category, imported subcategory, occupancy. I could have selected all and bring them from that. So we can change our categorization. So we can change them from one to other in a bulk list. So what we're going to do here is we've got migrate from those categories. And we're going to go in with the list now by selecting next. We have any occupancy in here that was selected as imported. I'm going to actually do several of these. I can go through my list. This may be long or short depending on what you have in your account. See, we have this Brother's Retirement Community. That place is actually right down the street from me. And I see the question from William. Good question. No, there is no, as you can see right here, there is no bulk select button. Even if I go all the way down to the bottom, do not believe there is one. So I need to go through this and look at them. There's no bulk select, unfortunately. That would be a great feature suggestion, William, in our community forums. It's perfect. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Selecting these here, back up to the top, and I'm going to select to migrate them to, and that's all the way down here at the bottom. Our categories and subcategories will be present. And we're going to put these into residential R3, 1 and 2 family. So we've made that selection, and we're going to get up here and migrate those occupancies. So the ones that I just selected have went from imported to R3, 1 and 2 family. Select done, and we've got that. Now another item we can do in here is changing inspectors. So if we have, and this would be changing inspectors by the occupancy type. So if I have a particular inspector that I want to go and assign to all of my theaters, let's just say all of our assembly occupancy, I may have to do that one at a time here. See, A1 theaters. Select next, I'll get my list of them. And I'm going to select them, and James, you're getting all these whether you want them or not. There's a list that we can do up here. And then we're going to migrate them. So now we've just changed those in bulk operation real quick by the category subcategory to James. And the next item we can do is to unarchive occupancies. So if I have them in this assembly A1 archived, I have a couple in here that we'll want to pull out, and I am going to unarchive them in a bulk operation like that. Just gives us a little bit of shortcuts to do those operations a little bit quicker. Right here at the top of the page, it does give us some direction up here to change the category, subcategory. That's what this is usually and most popularly used for. Number 2 is assign inspector to an occupancy, and remember that's based on the category, subcategory, and then to unarchive occupancies based on that category, subcategory. You make that selection here and make your selections as I demonstrated there, and you're off and running with that. So that's very, very useful. It's kind of hidden in here, and a lot of people actually, quite frankly, don't know about it. So hopefully we're getting that information out to you that we're showing you now. And here it is right at the top of the page with the migrate occupancies link right there. Big, big bulk operation tool for you. I think we just taught William something, so we're golden with that. Okay, we're going to move on down to the inspections section. This is a little bit different than you're used to looking at, is that this was all in one page before. Now we've got it broken down into sections. Some of these were kind of jumbled up in those before. So we straightened this out a little bit to make them easier to find. And we're going to skip over inspection forms right now. We're going to talk about a couple other items in here. First, we're going to look at inspection results first. So this is what is the end result of my inspection? And you can see I have a list here. This little plus sign over to the left is extremely important that I'll talk about here in just a moment. If you this is one of our pre-filled default lists. If you don't like what's in here, and you can add to it, edit the text and so forth, add a description to it. It's fairly simple. We select to add the inspection result, and I'm just going to put that here up. It's way too many years for that. Now, here's the important part of when we're doing the result is there's 2 items down here, and I could put a description in here too. To allow follow-up inspections or to require re-inspections. Now you can check one or both of those. I recommend you just pick one of them. So if this particular result, what this means, if one of my inspectors selects it in the page 3 of the inspection record that requires me to do a reinspection, I will have to schedule a reinspection before I can authorize the inspection. That's something that's really important to do down here, depending on your workflow in your department. You may want to make sure that you have that checked. So especially for any type of inspection result that you want your folks to go back and do a reinspection, like we have in this one, is we have both of those checked. So it's really important that you might want to revisit that list. This will force your folks then into setting a reinspection date before they can authorize the inspection for any of those that would meet that criteria within your department. So that's a very, very important setting to get set up correctly for you. In your inspection types, we have a few things to talk about here. So our inspection types list, basically whatever type of inspections you do. Most of us will have a annual inspection. Maybe you have one that if you get a complaint called in, a construction, cooking operations, a sprinkler test, whatever it might be, you can set that up on this particular page by inspection type. Couple important things with this is, first of all, if you want a day book entry made when you're doing your inspections, you have to map it to a day book activity code. So if I need to do that with my pre-fire plan inspection, let me come over here and select to edit this, and you'll see I can select from my day book activity code list, and I may have one in here for a pre-plan inspection. I'm not certain, but we'll just pick something anyway to show you how this works. Now, whenever I make that particular type of inspection, that is the day book activity code, and we'll put my in and out times onto my my day book that way. Also, if your department charges and bills for inspections based on inspection type, you can do that from here. You just have to specify how much it is. So let's select to edit that again, and let's say this is a $50 inspection, and we'll go ahead and save that. And so we've set that up. So if I have this type of inspection selected as my inspection type, it will put $50 automatically onto page 3 of my inspection record. Now there's another way that we can do that billing operation that's within the inspection form. We're going to go there in just a little bit. So again, this is a layered form. If you want to have activities put onto your daily log from your inspection activities, make sure you map it to a correct activity code. You may have to put multiple activity codes in, depending on your schedule, and make sure you enter that correct billable amount into that field. So that is basically the inspection types. Inspection question observation value. So within an inspection form, and again, we're going to talk about this in detail next month. But let's say in your account, there should be probably 3 items in there already. And I'm talking about a brand new account that's not been touched and altered. Pass, not observed, or fail. If you don't like that text, or you have other text that you need to have, and this would be specific to each question in your inspection form, you can generate these. It's add the new value. And if that observation is billable, check that right here. So we can do billing within the inspection form itself. And we'll save that, and you'll see that right down here. Oops, excuse me, it's all the way at the bottom. I must have done this already. Okay, so that's the inspection question observation values. And of course, you can set that up customized to the terminology that you use within your department. Next item down is our inspection times categories. So we can, on the inspection form, add additional times. This is where we would set that up. Now, typically there is 2 in the default codes, which is administrative and travel time. If you need additional ones, it's fairly simple. As you can see, we've got code research and report preparation built into here. And we can add that, just type it in, again, using my Virtual Thursday 2020-4 and save it. Now we have that in where we can select it. That's on page 3 of the inspection form. I see a question by Philip out there. I'm going to let Greg, or Greg Simmons, our regional trainer, take a stab at that. If he knows the secret to that. If he doesn't, he can chime in right now, and I'll go back to that, Philip, to answer your question, because I know the answer to that. I'm sure you'll like the answer.
I have not learned that secret yet, Mark, so I'm going to learn.
Okay, so here we go. Inspection question observation values. Okay, this particular list in your inspection form on page 2 is sorted alphabetically. So whatever's at the top of this list on this page will be the default answer. So Philip, that is how we do that particular list. It's sorted alphabetically, and you select it in the inspection form. You'll see that list alphabetical in here. So the one at the top of this list, billable observation, will be the one in the inspection form at the top of the list. That's the secret. All right, let's. This is a new feature, inspection email default message. So when we take a look at this, basically, when you send the emails out, there's a stock text that gets put into the email that your recipients get, your contacts get. You can change it from the default to text, any kind of text that you would like by entering it on this page and saving it. Now, one item I do need to talk about here real quick, and I am going to go back to my tab, and hopefully there's an inspection in this building. No, there is not. So to save a little bit of time here, I'm going to jump to a different occupancy. And we're going to go into this one. So I know there's some inspections in here, at least I believe there are. Okay, so that default message, if I send an email from this page, which is the inspection tab, when I send this email out, that has that text in it that I just showed you on this page. This is the text in the body of the message that that recipient will see now. Nice little feature. We just updated that to the permits section here a while back. So that actually, one item I will tell you about that, if we go into this inspection and we go to page 4, so if you have your process, if you send this email from page 4 of this inspection, select my observations. If I have some to select, if you send it from here, that new message does not appear from here yet. They haven't made that connection because they're rebuilding this page. They're actually rebuilding it right now. I saw a mock-up of the new page here a while back, and it looks a lot better than this for you. So that will be, that default message will go out from that page as well when they get that part of the system built up. That's one of the last sections within the occupancy module they're going to be working on. Okay, Greg wants to talk about a bug that he found. Is that the state? Greg, I'll just ask you flat out, is that the state DD and the address? And if that's the question, we are working on that, getting that repaired. Okay, the last thing to talk about today is the inspection forms. And we know we have a couple questions. We'll follow up with those in just a minute. So the inspection forms can be a very, very tedious task to build up. I want to show you that we do have quite a few forms in here. Now we can add a form. It's a fairly simple process. to add the form. So we're going to put a new form in. We're going to call this Virtual Thursday 2024 Alpha. So we do have a basic set of questions that we have built into the system that you can bring in, and we just put that in right down here, and you'll see what those specific questions are. They're in a few different categories here, such as exits, and some different text in here. And this is very generic information in here. It's a good starting point for you if you don't have any inspection forms. Then remember, when you get all your editing done, you have to lock the form before you can use it in an inspection record. Okay, so that was the first thing we can do. We can also add a new form, and we're going to call this Virtual Thursday 2020-4 Bravo. You can start with a blank form. So if you need to build one with specifically for a form that you need, we'll generate that one, and we'll go back in and take a look at it real quick. You'll see that that form is completely blank. There are no category, subcategories in it. There's no signature options selected. So basically we would add our category, put in a sequence number, and update it. Then we can add inspection questions to that. Select the plus sign, add a question. Now here's a really important point I want to make to everybody within the inspection questions. So this is question 1. Type in my text. If you have a billable amount that may apply to this specific inspection question, this is where it would go. So let's say this is 25 bucks. And we have a sequence number here. So sequence number 1, whatever the sequence may be, make sure you select this save button right here. And then it saved that question in that category. And we can work through this process and build out that form to the extent that you need it. And remember, here's something that came up just the other day. We had a customer ask us this question. Well, my form didn't save. I went and spent some time building it, and then I came back to it and it wasn't there anymore. Well, what he did is the system timed out on him. So if you're going to be away from the form, you have to do some code research, look some things up, and you're going to be outside of that window that your system requires you to an automatic log out. And there's a time interval, 10 minutes up to 6 hours currently, that the system will automatically log you out. If you hit that window, you will lose the data here unless you save that form. So if you're going to be away from the form for a little while, remember to select that form out there, and we'll go back into this one. You can see that it did retain my category and all my questions in here. And you want to remember, when you get done with your form, get down here and select the specific signature options that you need. Name, rank, email, display a work phone number. I always like to make sure for inspectors specifically that we have a work phone number in the system for them, and we can display it on there, whether it's a city or department cell phone or their phone at their desk, to display that phone and not their home or mobile number. For the signature line for our inspectors, we can display the signature line or the signature capture. To see that signature capture, if you're using that part of the system, you need to make sure that you select that in our signature options. And if we want to have a occupant or representative signature capture displayed, want to make sure we check that. If we want our next display inspection, do we want the billable amounts to display on our inspection form? And do we want our closing notes displayed? Now this is one that's a big improvement here. As you can see now, the closing notes are limited to 5,000 characters. Now that used to be 500. That's one of the recent updates and a great improvement on that, because some of you may have some extensive legal text you need to be pasted into here. 500 text or characters in the past wasn't enough in some cases. So now you have that capability with that to extend that quite a bit. And I'm going to go way up here at the top. And you have the inspection form description. I think this still is limited to 500 characters. at the top of the page. And we just put in our text, not test. Text goes here. We'll save the form. And then when we get done with that, again, we'll need to go back into it and lock it. Now we can lock this form. You get this warning every time you go to lock a form. And Terry is asking this question right now. Great question, Terry. So I'm going to select to lock this form. So it tells you right here that you cannot edit it ever again in the future. Well, here's how you get around that. So here's this form, and you can see that it's locked. I cannot edit it. I can look at it by selecting the preview, but I cannot edit this particular form. So Terry, here's the answer. Maybe this is a secret. I hope not. We can add a new form, and I'm going to call this 2020 for Charlie. We can go find our inspection form that we had here, and it's this one, and add it. So we just took that form that was a 2020-4 Bravo and made it into 2020-4 Charlie, and now we can go select to edit it and change our text any place in here, add additional questions, remove them, whatever we need to do to revise this particular form. One of the things that I'd like to recommend is in the name of it, we use some kind of text in here, whether you put a version number, like this is version 2.1, if we edit it, that it's version 2.2, or a date that you revised it, and then you can kind of keep track of them. Another thing that I like to recommend that you do is, since let's say we revised it, we're done. Is to go ahead and save it, and then we're going to go back in here and lock it. So we revised that form. What I recommend you do is go in here, this one that's this 4 Bravo that we don't need anymore. I'm going to disappear it by deleting it from there. And it doesn't affect any inspection records that you have out there. So that's the process that I would use. So you keep the list for your inspectors to the ones you want them to use, and not let them be able to select a obsolete form on that. Now, the third magic that we have for you to show you before we start looking at some of these questions is, let's say that, golly gee, you have a fire department down the road from you that's an ER customer, and they have just a perfect inspection form that you like. If you set them up as a agency friend for occupancy, that gives us one of the benefits of having some friend agencies. We're going to call this 4 Delta. And agency friends inspection forms will show up. If I scroll down here a little bit, you're going to see here's the department I retired from, Greenville Fire Department, any of their forms here. Alan's good old test account. If that was one of these forms that I needed, all I have to do is select it and add it. And I just brought that form in from an agency friend into my account, and it is down here, and we'll go ahead and take a look at it. So that's it. We can edit this to whatever we need to do with it. Then lock it up, and we can go ahead and use it. So that is basically the information that, that we wanted to present to everybody today. And we're getting close on time, but what we want to do here is go over a couple of the questions. Greg, any of them that you know in specifics? Mike left, so we're going to pass his up. Anthony, I do not know if that updated new text for the default email goes from the Inspect ER app. I have not tested that yet. If you're using that app, go ahead and set it up as a test and run one real quick. So I would recommend you do. Edward is asking about how do you track billing per square foot? So you have a 3,200 square foot building that equals $75, or maybe it's $75 per square foot. Now you can, within the inspection form on page 4, you can't edit that. So that may be something, there's no formula in here like, you know, so much per square foot. Now, if you have a group of square feet, like anything up to 500,000 square feet is $75, you can set that up as an inspection type. 0 to 5,000 square feet is $75. Set it up another inspection with the same name perhaps, but 5,001 to 10,000 square feet, put a different fee in for that one here. But the per item, like your example there, you may have to do that math and then put it into the inspection form itself. And I will show you that next month when we do that particular session. And we answered Terry's question. And we're going to go on down here. And Brian, are inspections linked to occupancies? The answer is yes. And Mac already threw that out there to you. And if you delete an occupancy, this is a good question, Brian. Actually, you cannot delete an occupancy. You can only archive them. Now, when you archive that particular occupancy or that, let's say the business that was in there or the entire occupancy, you can bring that information back if you unarchive them. It doesn't delete it when you do that archive operation. And Rob, okay, the pre-fill codes, thank you for bringing that up to me. I told you I was going to do that. So what we're going to do right now is show you. So we're going to go into the administration module. In the drop-downs list, which is over here in the right-hand column, pre-fill default codes, we'll select that. And you'll see in this particular list, you have several sections, modules for administration, hydrants, maintenance, occupancy, occupancy inspections, and occupancy permits down here. So you can see in this particular one here, inspection type, I only have 3 of the 12 pre-fill default codes out there. And if I select view, this is the list of the ones that are not in there. Now, if I want to restore them, all I have to do is select right there. I'm going to scroll up to the top or go back to the bottom, and any of the ones I select in here, I'm going to select insert, and it is just putting those default codes back into the account. It's just that simple. And then we just restored it to factory brand new. But the ones that I had added to it, see, now you can see I've got 12 of the 12 in there. The ones I had added to it are still in there as well. So that's how we do those pre-fill default codes. It's in the admin module. You've got some for the admin module, hydrants, maintenance, occupancy, inspections, permits, the daily roster, and events. You want to be careful when you're doing this. You may be doing something that you don't want to do. Someone may have removed some of those for a specific reason, and you may not want to add these pre-fill codes back in there from that. So that's how we do that. So we're going to go through. Greg, James, or Mac, anything else? Any other questions that we need to respond to? I think we got to everything out there today. I appreciate everybody's attendance. We'll give everybody a moment to ask any additional questions you might have. Go ahead and post them up now, and we will give you just a moment to get that entered in here. And if we don't see any, we'll put this one in a record book. Appreciate again everybody for attending. We appreciate your attendance at these, and again, we'll be taking this recording that we're making right now, probably tomorrow or Monday. This will be edited a bit and put into the knowledge base under the webinars on demand. For you can review it later, and also it is available actually on YouTube. If you go out there, they're all those webinars on demand are YouTube videos.
Hey Mark, we got one that Nick put up. Said you showed how to assign inspectors by occupancy type. Is there an easy way to switch inspectors assigned to one inspector to another?
Oh, sure. You do that from the grid here. So what we can do, that's a bulk operation. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take this particular list here, and I am going to filter it by this Alan Miller. So he's assigned to a number of occupancies, 7. Now you can do that. I just filtered him. I'm going to change this from him as an inspector to someone else. So since I filtered it and I've confirmed, yes, these are all 7. I want to do all of them. Here's a box up here to check. And we just turned on the bulk operation feature for this. Now, if I don't need to do them all, I can select them individually as well. Or select all of them, and then I want to do all of them except for that one and turn that one off. Then we would go to actions. Select actions and bulk operations, assign inspector. And we're going to take those and we are going to assign them to James, whether he likes it or not. And I'm just picking on him. He's one of our trainers. Just remember that. So boom, just like that, we changed the inspector responsible. So hopefully that was Terry, correct, that asked that question?
It was Nick. Nick,
Okay,
did that
Nick.
answer your question, brother?
It's a fairly simple operation.
Yep.
It's on the grid, and you do it with that bulk operations that is now under the actions button to reassign the inspector. And you can go through your entire grid and select them individually if you need to or want to, but you can use this filter up here as well. All right, any other questions out there?
There is one more that Nick just popped in, Mark. Is there a way to separate out the ones that were assigned to James originally and then assign them to Alan now? So basically, if you wanted to swap who was assigned.
That would be filter. So if we're going to look for any of them, that in this case, we'll just pick on James again. We'll just select his name in the filter up here. And you can see in this particular account, there's almost 900 occupancies. So I just filtered out, and James is the assigned inspector to 10 of them using that filter. And then I can go select them to change that inspector. You can use other filters. You can use multiple filters at the same time. You don't only have to use the inspectors. Let's go back out here and just come in. And let's say we want to do select everything that's an educational assembly, and we're going to assign that to Greg. Greg, if you're not an inspector, well, I didn't want to filter it by Greg. I want to select them all and do my action bulk operation, assign them to, and we'll get to you eventually. There you are, Greg. And that same operation you can basically do within the settings, but you can do it from the grid too by selecting your category, subcategories. So Nick, I hope that answers your question about how to do that. Filter it off the inspector and then doing that bulk operation available under action. And in your case, here's another for that particular question you put in, Nick. I'll just describe this. In some cases, what we would maybe do is set up, assign them to a station, and maybe even through the zones, we may need to correct or set up zones. Like zone 5 would be station 5, and maybe we would have 3 different shifts. So we could have zone 5A, 5B, 5C. Then we could filter it from here based on that shift and do that switch from that company officer from one group of inspections to the other. Very, very simple. So you can get kind of creative by using these zones like that. Does help you in that type of operation too. So that is basically it. We have anything else out there showing up, guys? I appreciate it.
Got one more, Mark, that just popped in. Rob Miner would like to know, can you download the inspection into a PDF format before or after an inspection?
So, and Rob, I'm assuming that you want to look at your inspection form or your entire inspection form, maybe even a blank one. And the answer is yes, we can do that. So what we're going to do is, I'll show you how to accomplish that. I'm going to go into this particular occupancy. And what I'm going to do is go in here and I'm going to start an inspection. I'm going to select the form that I want to see. I'm going to select this one here and click next. I'm not going to put any data into this. This is the inspection form itself right here. No data. I have to select an inspection result. I'm just going to select pass because it doesn't make me do anything. And right here, I'm going to go in and put in my password to authorize it. So now we have that authorized inspection. And here it is. If I just go to this page now, my inspections tab, and select print, make sure that I have all results and all unanswered questions selected. And there it is, all 24 pages of it. And I'm hoping that's what you wanted to see, Rob. This is a very, very extensive inspection form based on the Ohio Fire Code that we pulled out specific code sections. Put them in here in different categories in that. Okay, great. So that's how you would do that, to have this printout so you can take a look at it. And if you bypass that page 2, then you won't see any notes or any inspection observation values displayed in the form whatsoever. And then, you know, we look at it, we printed this out on the hard paper, we saved it electronically. Then to clean things up, we can come in and unlock this and delete it, and then it won't show up in their inspection history. That's how we would handle that. Great question, Rob. Okay, I'm not seeing any more. Does anybody else see any out there? We're a little bit over, but that's fine, everyone. We appreciate everybody sticking around. There's 42 of you out there still. Hopefully everybody is staying well and avoiding the COVID-19. And we'll see everybody at next month's presentation of Virtual Thursday.